Today, we're going to be chatting about pet relocation and getting your fur babies to the USA. Just in terms of the format of the webinar, myself and my guest will have a chat. I have a few questions. I'll do an introduction. While we're having a chat, if you want to place your questions in the Q&A section, we will cover your questions at the end of the webinar if we haven't done so already in our introduction. So I would just like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Kirsten Halcrow. I'm the founder of Immigrate to USA. Immigrate to USA is a website that's been developed as a resource for South Africans looking to navigate immigration into the USA. It is built basically as off the back of my own journey. My family and I immigrated to the US 3 years ago. We are sort of 3 years in L1 visa. We've obtained our green cards and we are really loving life here. Our journey's been challenging to say the least, but I think it is for anyone that sort of undergoes immigration. And off the back of that, I've created this website as a resource that has blogs and articles that help guide you on getting visas, navigating the path. It's basically anything to do with the planning, the moving, the settling, and starting a business in the US. I have partnered with a number of specialists in all sort of aspects and the ecosystem, the immigration ecosystem. And those businesses I have personally met with, vetted, and trust that they will help my clients make it an easier journey for them. So next, I'd like to introduce my guest, not to confuse everybody, but her name is also Kirsten. So I'd like to introduce Kirsten Stolk. Kirsten is the pet travel manager at Aeropets. She has a passion for paws, and that's what sort of led her to join a business that does pet transport. The fur babies are a part of her family, and why she aims to help what she calls paw rents help get their fur babies to the US. She started her journey in the sort of heart of COVID, and she's played a major role in changing COVID's played a major role in changing what used to be a simple process into now quite a complex process. So each country has its own rules, regulations, and she helps clients navigate pet relocation. So, Kirsten, will you just start off by introducing Aeropets and just telling us what Aeropets does, and then you and I can have a chat and you can answer some of my questions.
Of course. Thank you so much. My name's also Kirsten. Hi. So, Aeropets was founded quite a while ago. It was 2003. So, we've been around for quite a while. I joined the journey only around 2020, just before COVID hit. So, um, uh, COVID has had a major role to play, but I think in terms of pet relocation, it's just changed what we call the veterinary requirements. The travel processes are generally the same. Aeropets, we have a passion for live animals. It's just, if it's fluffy, we love it. So we just want to help. We know that they are part of a family, just like our babies are part of our families. So all we do is we try and aim to keep those families together. So yeah, pets are our passion. That's I think that should be our slogan. Pets are our passion. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, obviously, the start. Let's start. It's sort of a stupid question, but I'm navigating immigration. Can I bring my pets with me as part of my move to the USA?
Absolutely. It's 100% possible. There are requirements and steps in place that have to happen, but it's absolutely possible. You can definitely bring your pets to the USA.
Okay, let's sort of dive in a little bit. So, in terms of the requirements and everything in terms of bringing your pets over, do the rules differ between cats and dogs?
Unfortunately, it does. A cat is so easy to get into the USA, and a dog is incredibly complicated. I mean, the minute you start following the process and you're in the thick of it, it becomes so easy to understand. But if you're a parent looking at it for the first time, it's incredibly overwhelming, and that's what we're here for. Is we want to hold your hand, we want to guide you through the process. Cats and dogs are kind of worlds apart in regards to how they enter the USA, but both are still 100% possible. So, um, I can jump into those requirements if you want me to. So,
Yeah, I think
cats.
give us the difference between the two as a starting point.
Perfect. So the CDC unfortunately got involved regarding pet transport into the USA, which has kind of complicated matters a little bit when it comes to dogs. Now, dogs, because we're considered a high-risk rabies country, dogs have to follow a completely different protocol than what they used to. Previously, it was as easy as microchip rabies vaccine, and your dog was eligible to enter at any port into the USA. Currently, that is not the case with dogs anymore, but 100% still the case with cats. So cats you can take to any port of entry into the USA. Granted that there is an airline option that goes to that port, because when you're considering getting a pet into the USA, they have like the airport that you arrive at has to be live animal compliant, or it has to be able to assist with live animals. So generally it's the main ports that assist, but if there's an airline option, a cat can go anywhere. Cats just need a microchip and a rabies vaccine. Then they're eligible to travel. Dogs, unfortunately, have had an increase in requirements. It's progressed from just rabies vaccine and microchip to import permits to now quarantine. So when I say quarantine, it's not a massive quarantine period, but dogs have to have rabies vaccinations, they have to have microchips, they have to be done in a specific order, they have to have a titer test. A titer test is what is known as a an RNAT, so it's a rabies antibodies test. It tests the rabies antibodies in a pet's blood, and that rabies antibody needs to be above a certain limit before they're even eligible to travel. So once they've got a titer test, then they have to go through the CDC process where we have to get CDC authorization. We've got to have state vet endorsement done, and from there, we have to book quarantine space. So it's quite complicated between cats and dogs. Dogs can only enter the USA via 6 ports of entry. Unfortunately,
Okay.
it went from every port, then it dropped down to 18 ports, and now it's only 6 ports. So dogs can only enter via Atlanta, New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Washington. So those are the only ports that can accept dogs now. And when a dog arrives, they have to go through the quarantine process. Quarantine is maximum 1 to 3 days, depending on the quarantine station that you arrive at. And the quarantine is literally all that is required at quarantine is for your dog to be vaccinated with a USDA approved rabies vaccine by a USDA approved vet. Previously, it was perfect that you received your pet in the USA. You could go to a vet to get a USD rabies vaccine, but I don't think people were doing it. So the CDC have now crunched down, and pets have to or dogs have to have that on arrival. So yeah, the veterinary requirements for them are similar, but not, because a dog requires so much in addition.
Okay. So do they go into you can't see your dog until they've fulfilled the requirements of that vaccine and they've been in what do you call it?
Quarantine.
Quarantine. You can only then receive your dog thereafter. Is that correct?
100% correct. So, I mean, you can't really see them when they're in the quarantine station because it's such a limited time that they're in and out. Once they arrive into the USA, they're taken directly to the quarantine station. So there's not even a chance for you to see them in transit. They go directly to the quarantine station, and then they are seen by the USDA approved veterinarian. That
Okay.
vet, the only reason the quarantine can be longer than 1 day is because maybe the vet can't get to all of the pets' arrivals in the same day. So they are released as soon as they've had their vaccinations done.
Okay. So no quarantine for cats, is that's right, eh? No, okay.
Absolutely no quarantine for cats.
What sort of modes of sort of travel do pets? Is it mostly sort of on aeroplanes?
Um, yes, if you're going to transport your pets, it's mostly on airplanes. You can look into like cargo ship travels, but those take months, just like your cargo
Okay.
container. So it's not something to, if you want your baby to just get there as fast as possible, you would
Mm,
look at air travel. Yeah.
okay. Tell us, sort of, what are some of the mistakes that people make when they sort of relocate their. Let's talk about dogs because it seems to be more of a complex process. What are the sort of common mistakes that you've seen, and how can people avoid those mistakes?
So, the most common mistake that I've seen is the veterinary requirements because the USA has changed their veterinary requirements quite frequently in regards to the rest of the world. The rest of the world have had they have the same travel requirements uh, for years. USA have tended to increase their requirements yearly. So the
Okay.
biggest mistake that I've seen is regards to veterinary requirements. So it's always something that touch base with a travel agent or your vet before you start the process because the sequence of events in regards to the veterinary requirements is very important. That is the biggest mistake that I see with parents. Only to the USA because of the continuous change in the requirements.
So talk us through that sort of step-by-step process. Also, give us an idea as to where do you guys play a role, and where do your parents get what is their role, and then what is your role in terms of the step-by-step process of um, my flights are booked. I'm arriving in the next 6 months. What do I need to do to make sure that my dog's arriving at a similar time to me and it all sort of works efficiently?
Sure. So let me start with the specific points that you need to consider for a dog. The three main aspects to get your dog overseas is the microchip, the rabies vaccine, and the titer test or the RNAT test. The microchip has to be the first thing done because this is what's going to identify your pet throughout the veterinary process. So microchip has to be step number one. Step number two is your rabies vaccine. If you've never had a rabies vaccine before, it's always a good idea to consider a booster because the whole premise of the titer test is to determine the levels of rabies antibodies. And if you fail that, you've got to start the process again. So, step one is microchip. That can be done on or before the day of the rabies vaccine. So, if you have the chance to do it before, always do it before. But if you have to do it on the same day, 100% okay. From there, a rabies vaccine has to be 31 days old before you can draw the blood for a titer test. A titer test is where your vet will draw blood and will send it to a lab to be tested. So there has to be a 31-day gap between that rabies vaccine and the date of your titer test. From the date of the blood draw for the titer test, the USA has a rule where pets or dogs cannot enter the USA for 28 days after the blood is drawn for the titer test. Realistically, this isn't a problem because it doesn't take like a week for the blood results to come back. So essentially, it takes between 3 to 6 weeks for these results to come back, which means that your 28-day waiting period has already kind of voided. So once that 28-day period is up or you've received your titer test results, then you have to move on to the next step in which you need to get your CDC documents done. CDC documents is literally just a two-pager that's going to explain your information in South Africa. It's going to explain your information in the USA. It's going to detail all of these requirements, the date the microchip was implanted, the day rabies was administered, it's going to ask for details about that specific rabies vaccine, like when is it going to expire? Is it valid? A rabies vaccine has to continuously be valid. And it's going to ask you details regarding the titer test. Um, what was the positive or negative result on your titer test? It's going to ask you where you did your titer test because there are multiple labs that you can use. So it's going to ask you all those details. That CDC form then has to be completed by your private vet and has to be endorsed by the state vet, which is two completely separate processes. Parents generally often think that the state vet is going to see your pets, but the state vet is a completely separate aspect. The state vet is going to take the documents as uh, completely compliant because your vet is going to have signed it off. So the state vet is a process we actually handle for our parents because it's just easier for you. So we actually collect the documents, we go to the state vet to get the documents endorsed, and then we will either bring it back to you or we'll hang on to it until day of departure. The thing with the CDC document is that it only has a validity of 30 days. So we have to plan within your date of departure when we can do that CDC form because it can't be expired on arrival. Personally, I like to do the CDC forms roughly 2 weeks prior to departure. That gives you a little bit of grace period should any issues with the airline come up, should you need to bump your flight, should any of that those scenarios come into play. And so I like to do that generally 2 weeks. 10 to 1, you need that CDC form to also confirm your quarantine space. So getting it done roughly 2 weeks prior to departure gives you that um, uh, certainty that your quarantine space has been booked because it's always going to be tentative until you've supplied the information that they require. And
Okay.
quarantine space for the different quarantine stations is from 2 weeks to 2 months backlogged. So that's also a process to navigate in your step-by-step process. Once your
Okay.
quarantine date is done, once you've got your travel date, there's the final step in the process whereby a health certificate has to be completed. Lots of agents like to do the CDC form and the health certificate at the same time. The reason I don't is because I want the CDC form ahead of time to confirm our quarantine space, but the health certificate has to note that a screwworm treatment was done or a screwworm examination, and that examination has a validity of 120 hours. So if it was done
Wow.
2 weeks prior, you have to redo it again. So it just makes sense to separate it. So those are the steps in regards to the veterinary steps. Microchip, rabies, titer test, and then you go on to the CDC form and you go on to the final vet visit. So in
Wow.
regards to, yeah, see, the
It's tight.
CDC.
The timelines make everything so tight in terms of organizing and I know that for people immigrating, they're also navigating when is my visa, when am I getting my visa, when am I getting my passport back
Exactly.
from the embassy. So to try and time everything perfectly seems like it's quite a mission.
That's where I like to shine because I'm very much a control freak. So I like to literally plan every step for you so you don't have
Okay.
to because I'm a control freak in the way that I want everything to run smoothly because it's going to be less stressful for you, less stressful for your fur babies, and it generally why I like to hold your hand. So if you have a departure date in mind, even if it's a rough estimate, we can work out your timeline. It's a lot easier to do that. So, I mean, if you have to, if you haven't started the process, then it's a minimum of roughly 2 months before your pet can travel. So, if
Okay.
you haven't, take that into consideration. But yeah, since the CDC got involved, the requirements and the steps and the processes have just become like it's a lot more in depth.
Let me just add something in here. So Aero Pets is owner managed. Kirsten herself is in charge of or heads up specifically the US portion of the business. So she's a specialist when it comes to moving pets into the US. Just wanted to put that in there. And then just to our those people watching, if you want to pop any questions, please put them into the Q&A section, and we'll answer those as soon as Kirsten and I've finished chatting. So wow, Kirsten, just sort of understanding the timing and everything is quite eye-opening to me. I'm I'm learning a lot as we go here. Tell me, let's say the stars don't align and things don't work out and I need to leave before my pets. What happens in that case?
So there's multiple options that you can consider. So if you have family or friends who can take your pets and look after them for you, then that's generally the first step that a parent will take because you know that your baby will be loved, you know that you can trust the person that's with your baby. Then the process will stay the same. If they can assist you with the health checks and the getting the pet to the vet when they need to go, the process stays exactly the same. There's nothing that really changes. If that is not possible, you don't have someone here that you can leave your fur babies with, then we look at kenneling options. So we will choose a kennel that will be best for you and will be easier for you that you prefer. I mean, we all have our own preferred kennels that we like to use. But you would that would be something that you would decide if you're comfortable with and if you have the budget for, because now we have to pay the kennel per day to keep your fur baby. And more often than not, the kennels that we partner with, they have a vet on site or a vet that's easily accessible. So the vet would come to your fur babies and would do those veterinary steps for us. But again, that increases your costs because now instead of doing it with your private vet, you'll do it through us. So it's very possible if you have to leave before your fur baby that um, everything will still work out. You just have to then budget for it.
Okay. Okay. I think I think you've answered most of my questions. I think it is a really specialized sort of process. It makes a lot of sense to work with or to do your homework and work with a sort of pet relocation company that knows what they're doing, that understands all the sort of ins and outs and the rules and the CDC processes. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So, just want to check if there's any questions here.
You did
Um,
you did mention the part Aeropets plays, which I didn't really touch on. So
yes.
that's we've discussed now everything that's veterinary requirements. What a pet travel agent would do and what a a travel company would do is in essence they are then responsible for the logistics. So they will help you in regards to crates. Crates are a vital part of the process because crates has to be a certain, like certain standards have to be met, certain requirements have to be in place. So we would then assist you with the crate process. The crate is vital because with pet travel, you're not paying per pet like you would per person. You wouldn't buy a ticket. It doesn't work like that with pets, unfortunately. Airlines charge us per the space the crate takes up. So the larger the crate, the more expensive your process is because the space is taken up is a lot larger. So then we help you navigate that. We help you try and see how we can keep the crates as small as possible to fit within your budget. We then have the crates made to the specific standards that are required by the airlines. We will then deliver your crate to you so that we always encourage delivery ahead of time so that your fur baby has the ability to crate train, get used to their crate, understand their crate, get the smells of themselves. It's a little bit of familiarity on a day that will be unfamiliar to them. Then what we do is we liaise with the airlines. We get the flight dates booked. We get because every airline has different requirements as well. So we have to be considerate of breed, we have to be considerate of size, everything, because every airline has specific bans or restrictions that we need to take into place. So we find an airline that is best suited for your shipment because of breed or size or something. So we try and get that as cost effective as possible. Then liaise with the airline. I like to liaise with the quarantine station in for my parents. They are more than welcome to do it themselves. I like to do it for them because it takes that element of stress away. So that's what we do. We handle the logistics of a travel. From the day that you sign up with us, we then go through the process with you, explain what you need to do, get the requirements in place. We get your booking submitted to the airline, and then we wait for them to issue us a departure date. And that's how AeroPets is involved in a process for pet travel.
Okay, sounds brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to move here to see if there's any questions. I would be surprised if we don't have any questions, because I think you have made it very clear and sort of explained really nicely to us how the whole process works. So um, yeah, there's no questions, which is great. That means that you have explained and answered everything everybody needed to know. Let me just say that if there is anyone that would like to reach out to Kirsten, please pop me an email. I will put you in contact with her. If you do have any questions that you want answered, please feel free to email me. You all have my email. I will share the email. I will share this recording with you. If there's other people that you would like to listen to the recording, we'll share it on our platforms. And yeah, like, share all of our content. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn. I post a lot about my own personal journey and the story of our journey on Facebook and LinkedIn. So yeah, keep following us. Thank you for attending. Kirsten, thank you for taking the time to chat to me. I
Of
really
course.
value the information that you've shared with us and the time taken to help me with this webinar.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Fluff faces are our passion, so whenever we can help and jump in, please feel free to tug on our strings.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.